Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Smylie Show. Got a sweet guest today here, Golden Tate, joining us either from his house or Foot Locker. Not really sure. We got like all the shoes behind him. I mean, where are we at right now, GT?
You know, we're in my shoe closet right now that my wife she kicked me out of her closet or our closet and, built me a shoe closet upstairs in pretty much the attic. And so that's where I'm hanging out, where it's quiet.
Good man. Good man. Well, we just had a great time in Nashville this past weekend for the Justin Thomas Foundation. We'll get into maybe some of the stories that we experienced over the fun couple of days that we did have. And you all guys know that Golden Tate's a legend, played football at Notre Dame, won a Super Bowl at the Seattle Seahawks, went to Detroit, absolutely crushed it there, and a couple other years in the league as well. And I'm sitting here before this interview, Golden, and I was sitting here looking at, these were the best places to draft these guys in fantasy football. And I started thinking to myself, well, like, now that you're out of the league and like a normal guy, like just like me, are you a fantasy guy or no?
I was actually more of a fantasy guy when I played. I remember one year I was on, I think, 4 or 5 different fantasy league teams in one separate year. And it was not a benefit to have for me because I wasn't able, 1 o'clock games, I'm getting ready to play. And I guess people are announcing right before the game that some guys are not playing. So I'd find out after the game or halftime that I had someone on the plane that was actually not even dressing. So I kind of got screwed a few times, but I ended up winning a few leagues because of, just my expertise, if you will.
Mm-hmm. All right, so they don't care if you do fantasy football as a player? I know it's not a big deal, I guess, if they don't find out.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you play it, but there was a threshold of how much it could be worth before it became illegal or you would get in trouble. But as long as you weren't stupid about it, you were pretty much good. I always played within the parameters for the most part, so I never had to worry about anything. But it was more fun and bragging right type of thing than anything.
I guess I never had thought about players actually playing fantasy because, when I would finish rounds up, Golden, on tour so often where there was the daily DraftKings fantasy lineup thing, and I'd shoot a 74 and I get these tweets like, dude, you suck, you should quit the game. I'm sure you got that all the time in fantasy. So I imagine as a player that it was a love-hate relationship with the fantasy stuff.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I love fantasy football because it's teaching people the game to some extent. Some people who don't care about football, but they're forced to learn it, and players because of, fantasy football. But at the same time, like you said, man, when I'd have a big game, I get so much love on hey, you help me win my fantasy league championship or the game this week. But when you would not have statistically a good game, there was times where I had, 3 catches for 35 yards. Now, in real life, those were 3 first down catches in the fourth quarter to help us win the game. But in fantasy, it was dog water. And so people would get on my timeline. I mean, the fact that people were so angry that they would find me on social, they wouldn't even follow me. They'd find me on social media, have time to think about what they're going to say and send a very nasty threat to me and then hit send. I was like, wow, you care too much.
That's where we're at.
Fantasy football for a reason. And but I would also probably get a game ball that game because I had some key catches to help win. So it was man, screw you guys. So whenever I have statistically a good game, I'd be all over checking Twitter and receiving the love. And then when I didn't have a statistically good game for fantasy, I'd probably stay off of it.
No, that's definitely the right move for sure, because it's a very toxic place when you start to look at your Twitter after a fantasy football game, imagine, as a player. But Golden, I was going back and just kind of looking at old highlights of yours, and the epic one that we have got to talk about is when you were playing for Notre Dame. When you catch that ball in the end zone against Michigan State and jump full freestyle starfish into the band. I mean, what's going through your brain? Because you didn't have a chance to slow down, and I imagine that was the issue. But you're like, you know what? Might as well just swan dive here into the band. I mean, what are your memories from that moment?
Yeah, I just remember it was a pretty tight game, and Jimmy Clausen throws me a beautiful moonshot go ball, and my body clock is going off like, man, I got to be pretty close to the end line of the end zone. But in college, you only need 1 foot down. So I catch the ball, get 1 foot down, and I have about probably 3 or 4 yards before like you got the entire Michigan State band sitting right there. And I remember seeing like, I don't remember what instrument she played. It might have been like a clarinet or a tuba or something. I don't know, whatever. But I remember seeing this little girl just like frightened. Like she was like, oh crap. And like, fast thinking me, I just was like, okay, well, I guess it makes sense to land on top of many people versus to run this little girl over while I have these pads on. So I swan dive, jump up in the air. I'm looking down, and next thing you know, the Michigan State band go like out of the way, and I land on nothing but plastic chairs. Boom. Oh, okay.
That's what we didn't see. That's what we didn't see.
Yeah. I land on plastic chairs, but adrenaline's got me. I just scored a touchdown. I'm definitely hurting, but I played it off, and I crawl up out of there like, yep, nothing's wrong here. We just scored a touchdown. And it became a legendary moment, I guess, for the rest of Notre Dame, Michigan State history, rivalry, and it'll be shown for forever. And I love that people still ask me about it. And it's, it's an amazing part to be a part of, it's amazing to be a part of an historical school and have an historical moment too.
Yeah. It's awesome. I mean, it's one of the coolest highlights that you could ever watch. And for a guy that played in Notre Dame, Golden, you and I have played some golf together. I know how competitive you are, and I'm going to get to something with that competitive edge that you do have. But one quick golf question when it comes to Notre Dame, I've always seen on the field, and I've always heard that Notre Dame's field has a very long grass, and I always assumed it was for the game to be slower. But now, maybe you can answer that question, but also if you threw a golf ball down in this primary rough and you're hitting a 100-yard shot, are you catching a fly or is it coming out slow? Give me just your golf knowledge of what Notre Dame's field is like.
Okay. So, that's a great question. I've never had someone ask me that. But if I had to describe what I remember Notre Dame's
field,
we're
grass guys. We're grass guys.
Exactly. I would describe it as being at Torrey Pines in that rough. For the farmers.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Little kikuyu grass.
Yeah. Well, maybe different type of grass, but like the feel of like drop the ball's disappearing. Like it's going to be gnarly to get out of. Like in Notre Dame, really, I felt like they grew it longer. The faster the team, the longer the grass is going to be. So when we played SC at home, that grass is probably a little bit, a quarter to a half inch longer, which makes a difference on, running if you're a 4.2, 4.3 type of guy. So yeah, it was pretty gnarly. Since then they've became a lot cooler and moved over to turf and have night games and a jumbotron. And
it's turf now.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
man, that's on me for not being up to date on my Notre Dame turf field conditions.
Yeah. Part of me is like, man, good thing they went over to turf, but we know turf is just not good for knees at all.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Well, I'm guessing then, if you had a 100-yard shot, the ball would have gone 80 yards. You're not getting a jumper out of that stuff. So,
nah.
Okay, all right. So we're up to date on our turf conditions at Notre Dame, and I did mention the competitive edge side of you because I've seen this on the golf course. You and I put us as partners. We're both we work really well together. We ham and egg really nicely. But The other part of your celebrations that we've got to get into is just when you got a touchdown and you got one, like how you entered the end zone every time, whether it was a flip, whether it was waiting on the dude. I just now that I know you, I just know that's who Golden Tate is. It's like, man, like you want to beat me, you want to say something. It's like, you gotta do a little better next time. That's kind of how you are on the golf course as well. I love to see it.
Yeah. So playing football, I wasn't much of a guy who was going to do a lot of shit talking. Like I wasn't going to just go out there and talk crap to people. That's just not my style. People a lot of times would try to talk crap to me, but they learn the hard way that when you start talking crap to me, like I'm not going to say much, but that's going to I'm just going to play a little bit more. Or I'm going to do a little bit more. And it's not even that I do it on purpose. It's just like I hear what you're saying and like, okay, I got something for you. And eventually you get exposed.
Ravens starting their season 0-2. And I mean, the numbers and what the market had eyeing this team heading into this season is probably almost up in flames at this point.
Their last however many games being down 10 plus points in the fourth quarter. Inability to close out, getting picked apart by what is largely considered a below average quarterback with a below average receiving core.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Crew has already clinched the National League Central. They're 2 games behind LA, that being the Dodgers, trying to maybe get the 2nd seed in the National League standings for October.
Both of these teams have a chance to score some runs against these pitching matchups, so maybe another over, even though we do have a playoff atmosphere. And yes, Milwaukee did clinch, but there's still an eye on the prize of we might be able to chase down the Dodgers and also the Phillies to get one of those buys.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Next time we play golf together, Golden, on a second shot into a par 5, if you hit the green, I need you on top of the cart, flipping off. You hold a bunker shot, get to the front face of that bunker, do a little backflip into the bunk. I need to see a little bit of this action out on the golf course. I think you've been kind of holding back a little bit.
Fair enough. I'll get my pen and paper out. I'll start taking notes on different situations. Because I'll have to plan for, golf celebration. That's a little bit different.
Yes.
And then I'll have something ready. I'll have something cooking.
Right.
Maybe we'll have like a nice little, if we're on the same team, we'll have a nice little handshake that's like boom, 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 something crazy that people are like, dang, okay, y'all did that.
Yep, that'll be us, and we will be on the same team because I think we've just won too much now to where you can't separate us two guys. We just know how to win. All right, so you win a Super Bowl at Seattle, Golden, and you go to the Lions, and that's where really I feel like your best statistics were in Detroit. And this was something I've always seen on the internet, and I just want you to kind of put this into perspective, is that Matthew Stafford is maybe one of the most underrated quarterbacks of all time for what he is able to bring to that position. Can you just talk to that, being a wide receiver and a guy that caught balls for Matthew Stafford?
Yeah. Without Matthew Stafford, I'm not sure I would have been known as the Yak King. I mean, he was phenomenal. And, the good thing about being down a lot is that you knew you had to throw the ball a lot.
Good.
Now, obviously, bad thing you didn't win as much as we wanted to, but I knew that I was going to be fed. And Matthew Stafford's arm is just is so strong. Like, he makes hard throws look easy. His arm strength is so strong that it doesn't look like he's trying to throw it hard. It's just kind of like, but then it's like, it's right there on you. And anytime I came out my break, the ball was there. And so for a receiver, it's so important for me to get the ball as soon as I'm coming out my break, because that's less time for the DB to be crashing down on me. And like, what made me so good is that when I would come out my break, my brain would take a picture of like where the defense was and where I thought the defense was going to be once I caught it. And based off what their technique and stuff. So I'd get the ball early and I'd have a time to get the ball, make a quick move, and then get upfield. And they'd only gained maybe a yard on me. And so that was so important for creating angles at the wide receiver position and getting yards after catch or yards after first touch that, man, Stafford made me the Yak King because he was so strong, so smart. Where he placed the ball was incredible. There was times where I felt like I was completely covered. I'm like, oh, I'm dead. I'm covered. And he would throw the ball like, whoo, right here, where the DB couldn't get over the top, and I would just fingertip catch it. DB slides off, and I run for 30 yards. I said, man, that's what made him next level.
What were some of the attributes you picked up from Calvin Johnson in your time in Detroit?
Dude, you talk about someone who's special and makes the game look so incredibly easy. Calvin Johnson. And I'm not one to ever, when I played, I never thought there was anyone better than me in anything. I just felt like I could do everything. If I had the same passes, the same opportunity, I could be just as statistically successful as Antonio Brown during his heyday in Steelers. Now I went to Detroit, and we heard about Calvin, Megatron. I'm like, all right, I'm fighting for the number one position. And then I quickly found out, like, that dude is just different. I mean, to be that lanky and also be that fast, but also be able to jump out of forward field and also have those long arms. He just had everything. And it really clicked on me during camp, where after a hard day at camp, we go out there and Calvin was like, hey, G, you want to run some gassers? A gasser is sideline to sideline, back to sideline. It's a half gasser, what we call it. And I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? And, he says, ready, go. And he starts going, and he just looks like he's just, like, like the slow motion Baywatch, like,
yeah,
whatever you're calling. Yeah, like, and then me, on the other hand, look like you're fast forwarding me. I'm just like trying to keep up with him. And he's like trying to have conversations like, yo, G, so what'd you think of practice today? Anything that you saw from me? I'm like, bro, I'm trying to keep up with you. Let's talk about this after practice or after we get done running. And like, that's when I realized, okay, he's just got a gift that I just don't have. And then the other time that I realized Calvin was just different was like we're running routes on the air before we get into the real deal of practice. Quarterback, we all run the same route, and we run a go route, which is get off the line, sprint, run down the field as fast as you can. And Stafford chucks it 30, 40, 50 yards down the field, and Calvin just kind of like glides, and his long arms just go whoop. He's whoop, whoop. I'm like, all right, cool. I go next. Same exact ball, same quarterback, except for I'm like running my tail off. And when I get to the route or to the ball, I have to like stop and like full on like stretch out to catch it. And it's like, okay, that's what makes him him. He just does things that people just physically cannot do because he's so gifted. And that's when I realized, okay, Megatron's a beast.
Yeah. It's kind of like playing Scotty Scheffler in pickleball. It just feels like he's too gifted. You can't be this good at golf and be this good at another sport. And that's where I feel like we got to take this conversation, Golden, right?
Oh,
you
boy.
and I, we played on the golf course, but we had a great night in Nashville, and Golden, I think like you kind of planted this seed in us in that you're a big pickleball guy. You got your own paddle coming out soon. I know you love the sport. It's something that you play all the time. And you kind of were like, hey, let's play some pickleball. And then finally, like, you got four of us to go out there and play. It's me, you, Sam Burns, and Scotty Scheffler. Did you have any expectations of how good Scotty was going to be at pickleball?
I didn't. I'd seen him play in like Celeb-Ams, and I thought he had some game, but I didn't realize how good he was, and especially how good he was under the conditions that we were playing under.
It was a 30-mile-an-hour wind. Like, it's been a long day. We were out on the golf course, out watching Eric Church and Cole Swindell play music. So we were in a position, right? Like, we're not fully there, but
right. Yeah.
It was, I felt bad, right? Because like Sam and I y'all just kept hitting it at us, and rightfully so. Like, once you realize that how good Scotty was, you're like, all right, we just can't give away points. Like, SK, just get it over. Somehow just get it over.
Yeah. I mean, we played pickleball with golf cart lights, okay? Yeah. And pretty late, and thankful that no one got hurt, but like his reaction time and his footwork was good, and he had, as we would expect, he had really good hands and soft hands, and he was able to place the ball. And so it was really fun to play with him and all of you guys, and just kind of the camaraderie we built. And I mean, we created a memory that night.
We sure did.
I think we'll tell a lot of people, and it'd be fun to tell too. So, that was one of those things where I was excited for it to happen. And when it ended, I was like, bummer, because this was really cool.
You say this is a smash. I'm going to run out and smash my button while you talk about Ramondre Stevenson.
I don't think the Bengals defense is one that you should be fearful of. I think they're middle of the pack. They've lost the Bateses and some of those guys over the years that you used to fear. They got a lot of young kids in there who have some talent. But at the same time here, I do expect Ramondre to be a guy that is going to revert back to what he did a couple years ago.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
This would have been a bet that I would have lost big on in terms of betting on Trevor Lawrence thus far. Because, Vinny, I thought he was an absolute rock-solid, can't-miss first overall pick.
They're underachieving a bit. I mean, I don't think this is the best adjustment team with Doug Peterson. He's not the best adjuster. If everything's kind of falling into place and everyone's executing well and he can just do what they want to do.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Brian Dable has been feeling it. He's in a foul mood. He's having stare downs with Pat Leonard and everything else.
John Mara wants Brian Dable to go and get the next quarterback. They tried to get the next quarterback. We all watched it on Hard Knocks. They couldn't end up with Daniels. They couldn't end up with May. So they said, okay, we'll run it back a year. We'll go get Neighbors, and we'll tolerate.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Simply put, the only way to bet this is over under win total. I love Tyronn Lue. I think he's one of the 5 best coaches in the league. But my dear friend George Sorless told us to me a long time ago, you can't win if you don't got the talent. Unfortunately, I don't think the Clippers have the talent to match up.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
After Sam and I finally bowed out, I was like, you guys, y'all want to play a one-on-one? Like, you two play. Sam and I have had enough. Do you care to go through how difficult the one-on-one match was with Scotty? And do you remember I think it was 2 games. I don't remember what the scores were, but I do remember Scotty being victorious, which shocked me.
Yeah. He has a really good understanding for the game of pickleball, and it's kind of wild. Like, he was putting me in situations where I just couldn't create an edge. Like, athletically, I feel like going into the match, I was more athletic than him. But after he whooped up on me twice, I was like, okay, wow, this guy can play. I'd love to play him when we both are fresh and
you can get to every ball. I mean, you were still getting to every ball, but still, I mean, the positions that he was putting you in, he had you running around, man.
He had me out there just running sprints all over the court, and he just sitting at the middle of the court, just like angles, and I would get 1 or 2 of them, but then the third one, he would just like close it out because I was burnt out and tired. But would love to like get another game and figure out a way to get something going.
Yes. And Sam and I will watch. I think that'll be much better because Sam and I, we were, if handicap wise, we realized quickly that we were maybe like a 5 to 8 handicap, maybe not quite as good as we thought we were after playing with you two. And it was a lot of fun, GT. And the last question on the way out is about baseball. This is something that you were drafted out of high school. And I wanted to ask you about this because I can't imagine how difficult it was. You got drafted in 2007, you decided to go play college football, and then you have such a long career in the NFL through 2021. And then you said, you know what, I'm going to go try baseball again. What was that experience like? How difficult was it? And are you happy that you went and did it?
Well, I'll answer the last question first. Yes, I am very happy that I went and did it because I thought I was going to be playing baseball for the rest of my life. Like, I got drafted out of high school. Then I got drafted after my rookie season in Seattle, and I just decided to go play football. I just felt like, football's more my personality, more my style. I could have a greater effect on a football field than a baseball diamond. So suddenly I was like, okay, I'm playing football. And so the fact that I was, pretty much done with football, and my wife was willing enough to like let me go give it a shot. Not that she really wanted me to go do that, but I was thankful. I trained my tail off for a few months with Matt Noakes, who played catcher, who's Elisa's uncle, my wife's uncle, and grinded it out. And I did think there was something there. It's just, where I was in my life, like, did I really want to go pursue another professional sport while having 3 young babies after I'd had a spectacular career in one sport, one of the greatest sports in the world, and I was fortunate enough to make a bunch of money to support my family for the rest of our lives. It was like, what's more important at this point, to be a dad or be on the road for, months at a time in AA or AAA, grinding up, trying to get to the MLB at the age, I guess I'm 36 now, at the age of 33. Like, your window is very small. So it was fun and cool that I tried it. And I definitely felt like I could do it, but it's just maybe my next life.
Yeah, no, I feel that. It's almost like back to the mini tours too. Once you have that lifestyle that you've had being in the NFL and getting back on the buses and how difficult that can be, that is when you realize it's like, you know what? I had a dang good career, just like you said, in that baseball, in another life, right? And I actually would have loved to see what your baseball career would have been like for how fast you are, how good. Like, where do you think you would have finished up in MLB if that's the route you went?
I think I could have maybe found a way with like the proper coaching and grinding for like it take a while, because guys, it'd been years since I've hit a baseball, but like the strength, the fast twitch, the arm strength, like I was all there. The hand-eye coordination, the track balls, that was easy for me to do. But hitting is what separates guys.
Gotcha.
I was, in my mind, I thought I was going to be the next Mookie Betts.
Yeah.
Realistically, probably not. Self-belief is something I've never struggled with.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I can do a lot of things, and some of it's just like, dude, you just don't have a clue. And so I like to think I could have done it, but realistically, probably not.
Well, I've seen you be able to accomplish so many things, whether it be football or on the pickleball court. And by the way, when and where is this pickleball paddle coming out, and how can we find this?
Yeah, if you just go on the Paddle Tech website, you can find mine, and I can also share a link with you to add to this. But yeah, I partner with Paddle Tech, which is the best brand of pickleball paddles out there, in my opinion, simply because the number one player in the world, Annalie Waters, plays with it, and she's won a bunch of tournaments and hands down number one player in the world. And so I want to partner with someone who's reputable, had good stuff, and so I partnered with Paddle Tech, and they allowed me to create my own paddle that we spent a lot of time on.
You say this is a smash. I'm going to run out and smash my button while you talk about Ramondre Stevenson.
I don't think the Bengals defense is one that you should be fearful of. I think they're middle of the pack. They've lost the Bateses and some of those guys over the years that you used to fear. They got a lot of young kids in there who have some talent. But at the same time, I do expect Ramondre to be a guy that is going to revert back to what he did a couple years ago.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
This would have been a bet that I would have lost big on in terms of betting on Trevor Lawrence thus far. Because, Vinny, I thought he was an absolute rock-solid, can't-miss first overall pick.
They're underachieving a bit. I mean, I don't think this is the best adjustment team with Doug Peterson. He's not the best adjuster. If everything's kind of falling into place and everyone's executing well and he can just do what they want to do.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Brian Dable has been feeling it. He's in a foul mood. He's having stare downs with Pat Leonard and everything else.
John Mara wants Brian Dable to go and get the next quarterback. They tried to get the next quarterback. We all watched it on Hard Knocks. They couldn't end up with Daniels. They couldn't end up with May. So they said, okay, we'll run it back a year. We'll go get Neighbors, and we'll tolerate.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Simply put, the only way to bet this is over under win total. I love Tyronn Lue. I think he's one of the 5 best coaches in the league. But my dear friend George Sorless told us to me a long time ago, you can't win if you don't got the talent. Unfortunately, I don't think the Clippers have the talent to match up.
Betting above the rim, only on